Welcome to the Silver Screen Podcast. I'm Jared Boomer.
And I'm Katie Gainey West. This is a podcast about movies and pop culture.
And today we are reviewing an older movie because we like to, revisit the classics of cinema from time to time. This is an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It is from the 40s and it's called Notorious. Stars Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman in the two lead roles. So we will be talking about that today. We did an episode on Gentlemen's Prefer Blondes. That was very popular. And then we've done a couple other classic movies as well, but we hadn't done one in a while. So we wanted to go back and review something that was a classic. And I think this is one of the more maybe underrated Hitchcock movies or overlooked Hitchcock movies, maybe because it's not one that comes up when you think of Alfred Hitchcock. Not like one of the top 3 or 4 that you would probably think of right off the bat. Yeah.
This is one, though, that I had heard a lot about. Like, as far as I feel like this is his like mid-tier movies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I hear about this one a lot, but I'd never seen it. So I kind of just wanted to use the excuse to watch it. But Hitchcock, like, I have so many issues with who he was as a person, but his movies are so, so good. Like, no one did it better.
Yes, so we will be talking about Notorious today, but we do have some news items first, some quick-hitting news stuff. First up, congratulations to Rihanna having her second child. Of course, we saw at the Super Bowl that she was pregnant and has delivered her second child. We haven't got any pictures yet. We also don't have the child's name, as far as I know.
No, but they said it starts with an R because there's Rocky, Rihanna, RZA, and then some. Yep. This second boy has an R name.
Yes, so congratulations to Rihanna, though, and A$AP Rocky for that child. So her second one, so very nice. Now, we'll see if she works on some new music now. It's been a long time coming for Rihanna for a new album. People are waiting for quite a while, but congrats to her. Seems like child's doing well, family's doing well from everything that I've heard. So, and I respect their decision to kind of keep it private too. I think in this day and age, if you don't want to put your kid out on social media for the world to see, then or don't want to tell it its name, that's perfectly fine. So, another news item. So last week we talked about the Maestro trailer, Bradley Cooper's new movie, directing and starring in it, coming to Netflix, I believe, is who has that later this year. And there's been a lot of controversy or discussion about Bradley Cooper's nose in the movie, because the man he's playing was Jewish. Bradley Cooper, don't think he is Jewish, as far as I know. But they have given him a prosthetic nose for this movie that is very pointy. And that was the talk of a lot of discussion last week. And I didn't really see the big issue with it. I hope I'm understanding everything correctly.
Me too.
But it seems like from what I could read that it was just a choice that they made. And it seems to be pretty accurate to what, the character he's playing looks like or looked like in real life.
If you look at Bernstein, that's what he looked like. And also the family signed off on it. Like his kids and grandchildren and stuff are alive. And they all were like, Bradley came to us about every decision. We fully supported this. So I thought that was insane. And I think my problem now, I'm not Jewish and perhaps I don't understand. So if people have anything to add to this discussion, feel free to reach out to Jared and I on social media. But as far as like, Jewish people do usually have a prominent nose, but that's the same thing as other races and ethnicities having certain attributes. That's just the way it is. That's how black hair is different than white hair, things like that. Now, if he was dressed up in blackface, I'd have a serious problem with this.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it sounds like he dealt with this with the utmost respect. And I think this is also bizarre because it makes me upset. It's like people just woke up and thought, I need to pick apart someone today and chose Bradley Cooper. But also because things like Gary Oldman or people that have he was Churchill and he wore makeup prosthetics. How is this any different than people wearing contact lenses for a part or wearing different teeth or something to look like a certain real person from real life? If that was a feature of theirs, why would you not want it to be accurate? If he was doing something racist, I would be like, yes, this is a problem. But I just thought that the whole thing was just a bit too much for me. And just to, not to switch the focus, but I did want to mention that I was really impressed with Bradley Cooper. He has been sober now for 20 years.
Wow.
And that was a big story this last week too. He apparently I knew he was a drinker, but he apparently was also addicted to cocaine and he chose to get sober. He was like, I can't I can't deal with substances. Like, it's too much for me. And so he's been sober for almost 20 years now, which is awesome. So really
That's
proud of him.
awesome. Very
But
cool.
also, I just think the nose thing it's a bit much. But if we misunderstand, please let us know so we can be
Hmm.
educated.
Another thing is there's more in the Rachel Zegler Snow White controversy or drama that's going on. So Rachel Zegler is going to star in the new version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which looks like it's going to be has the same name as the original, but that's about where the similarities end as far as
Right.
what I've seen from the plot and the set photos and everything. But there was some more news with her this week.
Yes, she released a clip. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but she like basically was bullied into releasing an apology because so many people were upset about her comment that I talked about, where she talked about the writer's strike, and also her talking about how Snow White, like how they had to change the story. They just had to make it very feminist with a feminist bent and all that stuff. And I had mentioned last week, I don't I love feminism. I'm all for that, but I think it's weird to take a classic story and just completely change everything about it. Like, why would you even take the story or take the name or the character? Just create a new story. But Hollywood doesn't do original things anymore. But I do want to recognize, and I kind of alluded to this last week. Rachel Zegler is a young woman, and I don't know her. And I did point out, I am sure these things were taken out of context anyway. So I don't want to be part of the bullying effort. I do feel bad that she felt like she had to like release a statement. I was more bothered because it sounded to me like she didn't accurately represent or understand the writer's strike and was speaking as a voice of like the common man, which she is not. And that bothered me. I don't really care what they do with Snow White. I hate all the live action things they're doing. I hate that they just keep doing this over and over. So whatever, I have low expectations for Snow White. I've never been a big fan of Snow White, so I don't really care what they do with Snow White. But the writer strike thing, I was like, Rachel, maybe like let a writer talk about the writer strike.
Yeah. Also, it's weird that Disney decided to basically do this as a straight remake. Like they've done things before, like the Maleficent movies. Like those are in that universe or whatever. But by giving them a different title and focusing on the villain, you've kind of created a different type of movie per se. So it's weird that they instead of just doing a straight remake, they could have done something in the Snow White universe and done a project that is similar to Snow White, but maybe has some differences or new characters or whatever the case may be. But they decided they're not going to do that. They're just kind of remaking Snow White, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be too true to like the original version. So that'll be very interesting when that comes out. So another news item is that just like that on HBO Max, or I guess Max now as it's called, just got renewed for a third season. So the girls will be back for
Yay.
season 3.
I'm excited. I'm only one episode behind, and then I think next week is the finale for the second season.
Okay.
I I haven't talked to a ton of people. I don't think that people are as dedicated to this as I am, but also I just think some people haven't committed. And it's I mean, it's not the exact same as Sex in the City, but I've really enjoyed this season personally. I still love the show. I think part of it is a comfort to me that I really like the characters and the fashion and all that stuff. But I think they've done a good job, and I was thrilled they were bringing Aiden back. So I'm excited and glad they've renewed it for a third season. But I can't say I've talked to a lot of people who are as invested in it as I am.
Well, and I think like we just talked about Snow White, but like HBO or Max is doing this obviously like spin-off show that's set kind of with the same characters and everything, but by calling it something different and by changing a few things, you've kind of like expanded on the universe a little bit because you didn't just call it Sex in the City, you called it and just like that. So I think, that works a little better just comparing the two things in terms of like we're going to remake something or
Yeah.
relaunch something. Like I feel like that works better when you change a title, maybe add some new characters, subtract some characters that don't want to be a part of it anymore, do
And
all that.
the thing, I think the best thing that they've done with this show that really has worked in its favor, at least in my opinion, is evolving the characters as far as making them they're very human. Like some of the stuff is ridiculous, like some of the things they can afford and the jobs they have. But they did a really good job with increasing their diversity and making a lot of different characters really interesting and have complicated problems. So I think that they've moved it in a much better direction. I think a lot of shows don't often do that if they have spin-off series or continue too long. I think they really took their time with thinking out how they wanted to do the show and stay loyal to what fans loved about the original.
And then final news item is that Scooter Braun, who is a very famous manager, is losing a lot of clients this week, and there's been no real statement from him about why that's happening. You would think if he's not going to be in management anymore, that he would want to get out in front of this and say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is my decision," and then I'm parting ways with these people because I'm switching to a different role. That's what the rumors are, is that he's taking on a new role or with his company doing something different. But the way that it's come out in the media does not make it look very favorable for Scooter Braun. Of course, Taylor Swift has had issues with Scooter Braun.
Yeah.
Numerous documentation of that if you want to research into that. But he lost. So this week he lost Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, I believe Justin Bieber, Idina Menzel. Yep, they've all parted ways with Scooter Braun. So I'm interested to see if something comes out about him that's maybe not great in the next week or so, and we get some more details on this. But it's very odd that these long-term clients, these big stars that have been with him for so long, are deciding to not be managed by him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I am now totally a Swiftie, but he always seemed like quite a shady character to me that I'm not a fan of. But the only thing I have to say for those who are Taylor Swift fans out there, Karma is my boyfriend, Scooter.
So yes, that line in Karma where she's like, "My pennies made your crown," that's referring to Scooter Braun. So
yeah. And if you, I mean, definitely guys read about it if you love any of the controversies and you want to know. But that's why Taylor has had to re-record all of her music, is Scooter Braun. So
yep, sure is. So,
but that's okay because she right now is headlining the tour that's made the most money in the entire world,
highest grossing tour ever. Yeah,
ever. And it's not even. She's like a third of the way done.
Yeah. Yep.
So she's doing just fine.
Yeah, think she's good without him. So
yeah, Karma really, really is her boyfriend.
So on to our corrections, which we haven't done this week. So we'll move into recommendations. I don't really have any recommendations. I'm almost done with this freaking book, Demon Copperhead.
I've been following Jared.
Barbara Kingsolver.
We went into a bookstore this weekend and I was like, Arjun, this is the book Jared's reading.
Oh my gosh, it just needs to end. I'm at like 500 pages read and there's like 60 or 70 pages left. It's such a long book. So
I'm really proud of you.
It's been good, but it's just not, well, we talked about this before we recorded last week, that like her writing, you said you had read a couple of her books, is just not something that you can read very quickly. So it's very dense and you have to really digest it. So it's taken me a while.
No one would describe Barbara Kingsolver as light and fluffy or a beach read or something.
Yeah, this book has a lot to do with substance abuse, opioids, poverty, lots of things, lots of heavy topics. So yeah, it's very good, but it is not a light, beach read for sure. So.
Well, I only have one thing to recommend. I've been reading a ton lately, but I narrowed it down to one thing. I wanted to share None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I did get this through Book of the Month. Where else would I get a book? But it was excellent. And the reason I wanted to highlight it was because Lisa Jewell, she's written a ton of books. Not a beginner. This wasn't a debut, but her books, from what I've heard, are hit or miss. It's kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like, she'll have a book that's really good, and then she'll have a book that like people are like, I hated this. And so I've only read 3 of her books now, but they've been really spread out over the years. And I've kind of only read books that I heard were like hits, if you will. But this one, I decided to take a chance on it. I was like, whatever, it's Book of the Month. I might as well try it. It was so good. I read this in it was probably 36 hours because it wasn't a full 2 days. But it's the reason I also wanted to highlight this is I thought it was going to go in a really creepy direction. I thought this was going to go like straight pedophilia and just really warped family things. And there are some warped family things, but everything I thought was like the direction this was going to go, it didn't go that way at all. And I really like when a book does that. And I also thought, man, if this book goes the direction I think it is, I'm not going to be able to recommend this. Because a lot of books too, I lend to my mom to read after I'm done. And if it was about kids and like abusing kids and stuff, like that would have been a no-go immediately. But it was so good. It really surprised me. It made me super uneasy. And it was, I don't mean light and fluffy or a quick read or anything in any disparaging way, but it's like, it's an easy read. It's a quick read. And if you like anything that is like thriller or suspenseful or whatever, this was a perfect book. So again, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. And Jewell is Jewell.
Yeah, I looked it up on Goodreads while you were talking about it, and the
Yeah.
premise seems like really interesting for a
It was
thriller. So
it was
yeah,
really good.
okay, cool. I
Yeah.
have added it to the want to read list. So
Thanks, Jared. Hashtag book of the month.
exactly.
Sponsor us,
Hashtag
please. Thank you.
yes. We need your dollars. So
Yeah.
okay, on to our thoughts on Notorious, released on August 15th of 1946. Neither of us were alive yet. Neither of
Great
us would be
year.
alive for quite a while. Yeah, 1946, great year. Not no rating. I don't know if the MPAA was around at this time. I think if this got rated today, it would probably get a PG-13. I would think maybe a PG, but there is some
I
more
kind of think
romance elements.
PG. I mean, we
Okay,
do talk about Nazis,
yeah,
but there's no
and there's like
language or
alcohol,
there's
so
alcohol, smoking.
yeah. So I feel
Yeah.
like it would get a P. It would be a light PG-13 though. It wouldn't
Okay.
be like
Okay. That's
a
fair.
yeah.
We're now the MPAA.
Yes, we rate this PG-13, but more closer to the PG side of PG-13 instead of the R side of PG-13. So, hour 42 minutes or an hour 43 minutes. Well, at least we're pretty daggone close. So that's good. Box office wise, it's hard to find box office numbers for this, but
Yeah.
apparently made about maybe $113,000.
Yeah.
So
Which today would be 8 million. I don't know. I'm just
okay,
guessing.
yeah, it would be way more now. So it looks like, let's see here. This is probably adjusted for inflation, but on Wikipedia, it says the budget was $1 million and the box office was $24.5 million.
Whoa. I
So
mean, Hitchcock too would have probably been known at this point.
yeah, yep, and that's not outrageous that would have made and 24.5 million that might be 1946 dollars. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm not sure on if that's adjusted for inflation or if that's like from that actual time period. I mean, $1 million seems kind of accurate for the price to make a movie in
Yeah.
those days. So
Well, and I think another thing that I thought about watching this movie, I already told Jared, I really liked this movie. It's not my favorite Hitchcock movie, but he had yet to do all his masterpieces that we hear
mhm.
about all the time. So the fact that it was already this good in 1946 is really pretty impressive.
Yeah, and obviously he's very famous filmmaker, which we'll talk about here
Hmm.
in a little bit. But yeah, he had done some movies before this, but you're right, like North by Northwest and
Psycho hadn't
Rear
happened.
Window and Dial M for Murder, and all of those had not come out yet. So IMDb is a 7.9 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics 96%, audience 91%. So everybody enjoying this
Hmm.
movie. And the synopsis for this one is: the daughter of a convicted Nazi spy is asked by American agents to gather information on a ring of Nazi scientists in South America. How far will she have to go to ingratiate herself with them? So Ingrid Bergman plays the daughter, and then Cary Grant plays Devlin, who is like from the agency basically that Ingrid Bergman is working for. So,
Yes.
and they fall in love because, of course, they do. So.
Don't spoil the film from 1946.
This movie is directed by Alfred Hitchcock, who has been often called the master of suspense. He's an English director. He's known for Psycho, North by Northwest, The Birds, Vertigo, many others. We mentioned a few, Rear Window as well. Was accused of being quite a cad, and that is very accurate. And he had phobias of police and eggs. So he
Yes.
did not like
This
either
was
of those
like
things.
this was well documented that he had these fears. And there's certain things that happen with like in Psycho in certain movies why he incorporated police. They were always bad or they were like they made everything more tense and scary. He hated police. But eggs, the egg thing just really threw. I know a lot of people don't like to eat eggs or the smell or the taste or the texture, but I don't know about a lot of people that have a phobia of eggs.
Yeah, that's a little odd. So,
Hmm.
nominated for 5 Oscars for Best Director for Spellbound, Rear Window, Lifeboat, Rebecca, and Psycho. Didn't win any of them, but he was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award in 1968. So he has been
Yes.
recognized by the Academy. But crazy that he did not win an Oscar.
No, I mean, I agree. And also, I didn't include this, but IMDb had a fun fact about this. He had some quote when they were giving him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he was like, "Oh, I must be about to die soon." And he died the next year. And I was like, "Oh, shoot."
Wild.
Yeah.
So his last movie came out in 1976. So that was his last.
76.
Yeah,
How'd
last
they do?
film.
Didn't he die in 69, though?
Let's see. Let's
Or
go back
maybe
to.
I'm wrong about the year.
He died in 1980. So
So, what are they talking about? Guys, I'm sorry. Let's continue, and I will correct this as we're because it said something about, or maybe I got the Lifetime Achievement year
okay.
wrong,
So
and he
here's
died
what.
the next year.
So he was. I found it. So
Okay,
his
thank
last
you.
public appearance was on March 16th of 1980. He died in April, and he introduced the next year's winner of the American Film Institute Award. And then that's when he said the thing that you said, that he was like, "I'm probably gonna die soon," and then he
Oh,
died the next month.
okay.
So yeah,
Got it.
yep.
And we won't go into it because I don't have anything like cited and sourced, but he was just known for like abusing people and not being faithful to his wife and was just generally misogynist and a pig. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Welcome to the 40s and 50s. So
Yeah, yeah.
and the 60s. Okay, we will take a break here on the show. We'll come back. We'll talk about the cast and our likes and dislikes for Notorious. And we're back here on the show talking about Notorious from 1946. The movie has a pretty small cast, but some banger actors for that time
Hmm.
period, led by none other than Cary Grant.
Jared, you can fall asleep on the crush alert button for me for just a second. Thank you, Jared. Cary Grant, one of the biggest crushes of my entire life. He plays Devlin in this movie, which I thought was a very cool name. And I think at some point they say his like full name, but it doesn't even say on IMDb, and who really cares? Because Devlin sounds cool. Cary Grant is one of my personal favorite all-time actors ever. He's very well known. He was kind of a triple threat. He was handsome, charming, talented, funny. He was really known for how well he did with comedy as
Mhm.
well.
Couldn't
Um,
really sing though. I guess if there's anything that like
well,
drags him
okay. I
down.
mean, that's okay. I can't sing, so I'm
No, I
sailing.
can't either. So, but
He is he's originally from Bristol, England, and was definitely one of the most popular actors of his generation. Some of his most famous movies are North by Northwest, A Philadelphia Story, Charade, To Catch a Thief, Notorious, and Suspicion. He was nominated for 2 Oscars, which we mentioned in our 200th episode. Those were for None But the Lonely Heart and Penny Serenade. He did not win, though, but in 1970 he was awarded an honorary Oscar.
very nice.
Yes. And then next up, we have Ingrid Bergman. She plays Alicia Huberman. She was also one of the best actresses of her generation. And if you are a fan of Friends, like I am, her daughter, Isabella Rossellini, was on an episode or two. She was kind of dating Ross for a little bit, but that is Ingrid Bergman's daughter, and she's still alive today. Ingrid Bergman was a Swedish actress. She is tied with Meryl Streep and Frances McDormand. Jared, can you double check though? Because Frances hasn't she won? No, I think that okay. I think
Okay.
I think it's still right.
Okay, I
It
will
never
check
hurts to
that. So,
thank you. But she is tied with Meryl Streep and Frances McDormand for the most Oscar awarded actresses. She was best known for Casablanca or Casablanca. I never know how to say it, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Gaslight and Spellbound. Oddly enough, we also mentioned Gaslight in our 200th episode because I mentioned Angela Lansbury, and that was her first film role. She was nominated for 7 acting Oscars. 7 people. She won 3 times for Gaslight, Anastasia, and Murder on the Orient Express.
yeah, so she is tied with Meryl and
And Frances.
Frances and also
Okay.
Elizabeth Taylor as well. So,
Elizabeth Taylor. Oh, we love Liz Taylor. And then lastly, just continuing the people who were like the best actors of their day, Claude Rains. He plays Alexander Alex Sebastian. He was an English actor best known also for Casablanca, The Invisible Man, Adventures of Robin Hood, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Love that movie. He was nominated for 4 Best Supporting Actor Oscars for Notorious, Mr. Skeffington, Casablanca, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And I had to share this fun fact because all of these people have passed on, so they don't have upcoming projects or anything. But Claude Rains was married 6 times, and it could have been 7, but he died while he was married to the 6th woman. So 6 times.
I know I'm on his Wikipedia. One of his marriages started in 1920 and ended in 1920.
I
Wasn't
saw
even married
that.
the whole year.
I saw that. Wow. I mean, we don't know the story. I didn't do any research, and you know what? People can just live their lives, and they've all passed on anyway. But 6 times, you got to wonder what was going on there.
Yeah, and Cary Grant was also married a bunch too.
He was married 4 times.
Okay.
And you know what? It's funny you mentioned that though, because I looked at Claude Rains, and I think Claude Rains only had 1 child, a daughter, and Cary Grant also only had 1 child, a daughter. And oddly enough, she was also on Friends. She played, her name's Jennifer. And Jennifer Grant, she's still alive. She was Chandler Bing's girlfriend for an episode, or like a woman he flirted with in The Office. I think I brought that up in another movie where we talked about Cary Grant.
Okay.
But interesting that both of them were married so many times and only had 1 child, and it was a daughter from all of those marriages.
Yes, that is very interesting. So we'll get into our likes now for Notorious. So the first like for this is a very easy to follow story. We basically got 3 people that we're really invested in. The 3 that we just mentioned are the 3 stars of the movie. And that's really works well for a mystery and a thriller. I think sometimes where mysteries or thrillers fail is like when you have like too many people, like Murder on the Orient Express, or even Knives Out runs into this a little bit, where there are so many characters in Knives Out, especially the second Knives Out movie, where it's hard to kind of follow everybody and remember how everybody's connected to each other and all that. And there's certain characters you care about more than others probably, but in this it was really nice that there was only really 3 characters that we cared about, so it was really easy to remember everybody's like motivations, who they were working for, all of that kind of stuff.
I'm so sorry. I do. Jared's so good. I do have to make a correction. Cary Grant was married 5 times. I thought it was 4. 5 times, Cary. But I did want to mention 3 of those were elopements.
Okay.
Which I think that was much more common though.
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Anyway, dang, 5 times. Chill out, bro. But anyway, yes. Okay. So sorry, there was that. Back to the movie, what we were saying about it though. Yes, one thing I really like, because Jared talked about how this has a small cast, but what I like about these movies, especially Hitchcock was really good at this. They were just like straightforward and concise. You don't have to like, it's not like Marvel where you have to pay attention to like 30 things that came before it and after and compile all this evidence to keep everything straight. The only thing I think is very important in a Hitchcock movie, which I planned for, you can't be doing anything else while you're watching a Hitchcock movie. If you are distracted, don't look at your phone. Don't be like, have it on in the background while you're doing laundry. You will miss things. You'll miss the cameo from Alfred Hitchcock, but you'll miss like a crucial piece of evidence or something that's going to tell you what's going to happen in the story or who the killer is or whatever. So that being said, I really like that this is not an overly complicated story. And he does everything, the length of time for the story. It's a full and complete story told in a reasonable amount of time with really good pacing. So I know that Jared and I talk about film lengths all the time, but I think just another thing that Hitchcock really excelled in was that he could tell a complete story and he kept it interesting and he did it very well.
I would agree with you, and I think going back to your point of like paying attention is he's not one to recap something or bring up things multiple times in the story. So, like you said, you do have to be paying attention the whole time. And this is a movie, we have to give this credit. I think this is a movie from the 40s. It's in black and white. We're watching it at home. There's numerous other distractions that could pop up. And I was invested in this the whole time. I was not on
Me
my
too.
phone. I was watching it. Now it did take me 2 sessions to finish it, but that's kind of normal for me. Because I had like 45 minutes one day and then 45 minutes the next day. So that's very
Okay.
standard for
Okay.
me though. But I liked, the movie the whole way through. And I think it's even harder for a movie from an older time period like this to really compete for your attention with everything
Yes.
that is available nowadays.
I did pause it at one point because I wanted to make sure there was some question I had about one of the characters. Oh, I know what it was. I mean, none of this is really a spoiler. So Ingrid Bergman, though, her dad, you find out at the beginning, was a Nazi and has been thrown in prison, and he's killed or he dies. He
Hmm.
dies. I don't know if they said murdered.
He took a poison pill, like he did it himself.
Yes.
They're
Okay.
talking about that on the airplane when they're
Yes, but
flying
then
to, yeah.
I wondered if he was murdered. And so I think I paused it at some point to be like, am I understanding this? Did I miss something? Because again, it's Hitchcock and I was like, did I miss a crucial piece of the puzzle here? So, but anyway, it was helpful to like have a phone to look that up, but I agree with you, Jared. I mean, it didn't bother me at all that this was in black and white. I was so interested in the story and I'd heard so many good things about Notorious and Hitchcock his filmography kind of speaks for itself. You know it's going to be good.
So one thing that I wanted to highlight as a like is, and this is something that Hitchcock does throughout his career, is
Mhm.
his filmmaking techniques are really innovative for this time period. There's multiple cool shots. There's one where they're all riding on horses and they're all riding together. That would have been a hard thing to do in that time period
Yes.
to sync that up. There's one shot where like the camera, they're getting in a car and it goes from like the left side of the car and then goes over the top of the car and goes to the right side of the car. Another cool shot for that time
Yeah.
period. And then there's a scene early in the movie where like Ingrid Bergman is driving, but she's drunk and she's going all over the road, but they're using like a mixture of like screens or film behind the car
Yes.
actually. I thought that looked pretty cool too. For that time period, all of that stuff looks very impressive when you consider it's 1946 and there's no computers or anything yet, so they have to do this all practically somehow.
What a great call out, Jared. I'm kind of sad I didn't think of that myself. I definitely noticed the car ride the same thing because I was impressed with how that was filmed. You could hear them clearly and it didn't look, I mean, of course they're not really doing that drive. And part of me, I couldn't help but think like she's just straight up drunk driving and they're joking about it. Because Cary Grant's even like, "You're drunk," and then he tells her he's a cop, or like it was a bit much. But that's part of the charm, I think, of old movies is that some of the stuff is so ridiculous, or it's one of those things where not like we want to excuse 90-year-old men for certain things they say now or do, and say like, oh, that's just part of their generation. But a lot of these old movies, all you can say is like, it was a sign of the times. This is just the way that it was, and you just let it be. So that I kind of was freaked by the lack of concern about the drunk driving, but I thought the way it was filmed was so interesting and innovative, just like you said, Jared.
Oh, when she gets pulled over too and she's like, oh
Yeah.
crap, I got
Yeah.
like she wasn't gonna
Oh,
get pulled
again.
over. I'm gonna go to jail. She says something like, this is my third time, I'm gonna go to jail or whatever.
I also thought, why was Cary Grant not driving? Just drive the car. Why is Ingrid driving? You're not intoxicated. Why aren't you driving?
Yeah. So that leads me to another like is that this movie is very funny in some parts. Like that scene.
Oh, yeah.
There's another scene where Cary Grant comes home. Ingrid Bergman is like making a chicken, and she's like, it's like looks like it's the driest thing you could eat,
Oh,
and she says it caught on fire in the oven. So thought that was funny. There's a couple other parts that are pretty funny too throughout the movie. So there's
yeah.
some comedy intermixed with the tension and the thriller aspect, which I think is the next thing that we want to talk about, is just that this movie is very tense in parts,
Oh, yeah.
especially near the end, as you're getting closer to the culmination of the movie. It gets pretty tense.
I agree. I was going to say about the actors. Well, Cary Grant, that was one thing he excelled in that I alluded to. He was really good at. He could play like a straight character, but he he would add this like level of charm and humor that I do not think comes naturally to many people. I'm trying to think of someone that's really good at that today. Well, Ryan Gosling, I would say.
Yeah.
And maybe he's at the forefront of my mind, but I think Ryan Gosling is really, really good at that as well. But you could tell Cary and Ingrid had excellent chemistry. They just worked very well together. And I really don't want to leave out Claude Rains. I thought Claude Rains, who was a villain, which somebody I forgot, I just remembered somebody on my I reviewed it on my letterbox, and
Letterboxd.
somebody
Yeah.
commented on Claude Rains, and they're absolutely right. I need to respond to them. Thank you, whoever you are that did that. Um, but he is not to be missed. His performance is not to be missed in this movie because he was equally as good as them, but he's evil. The scene that made me, when you're talking about thriller aspects, Jared, that made me like so scared was when Ingrid Bergman is trying to steal a key. Well, she successfully does it. And she's kind of getting ready for them to go to dinner. She looks glamorous and just beautiful. And he goes to, Claude Rains goes to, oh, they magically got married, like after 5 minutes of knowing each other.
Yeah.
So
Which
Claude
like
Rains
tracks
is
for the
married
actors in this movie.
for,
So
for sure. So Ingrid and Claude, their characters get married in the movie. They've known each other like 5 minutes, and she's like, "Yeah, then I can expose these Nazis." So he goes to like kiss her hands, and she's holding this key that she's stolen in one of her hands. But the suspense was so good, and
mhm.
then eventually she knocks it on the floor and kicks it away with her shoe, and just everything about it, the way it was filmed, the suspense, that was what Hitchcock did so masterfully.
I really liked the scene when they are in the wine cellar and
Oh yeah.
basically they are so like there's a big party going on and they're serving
Hmm.
wine and they say at some point they're going to need to go down there to get more wine. Well, how Hitchcock kind of shows you how long it's going to be is just shows you this cooler, this ice bucket with wine bottles in it. And they just kind of keep going away as they serve more and more alcohol. So it builds this tension of like, oh, there's only like three left. And then at one point, you see the guy start to come downstairs to get more. So it's like that. I thought that was a really good tension building scene as well. Like, are they going to get out of here in time? Are they going to clean up this mess? I thought that was well done.
What was funny about that too? When the bottle first drops, it I thought it was a mistake. As far as like how it when it shattered, I was like, that's not liquid. I think I said that out loud in the house. I was like, that's not liquid. Like, what a horrible prop job, 1946. But then I realized like that was the point is they were like smuggling things in these bottles. But
Yeah,
I thought that was funny. And at first I was like, wow, guys, like you could have budgeted for some liquid.
could have poured some water in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool movie title as well. For a movie we called Notorious in 1946. That's pretty innovative, I would say.
I
It's
just
not a
really
word that gets used a lot, but it's a cool word.
No, I liked it, and just like the meaning of the word, I thought what a great I think I'm rarely impressed with film titles these days because it's usually like Marvel 59 or Too Fast, Too Furious. Like there's not a lot of thought, or we're remaking Snow White for the 12th time or Little Women for the 12th time. So I just thought what a really like a good title. And again, it was concise, it was right, and it's intriguing. And I am trying to find my review on Letterbox so I can at least point out the person's name. But anyway, go right ahead and I'll come back with that.
And then I think the final thing for likes before we move into dislikes is just this movie has a very abrupt ending, which a lot of movies from this time period do. And that's one thing I like about some of these movies too, because movies nowadays, you see them, the main plot resolves, and then there's like this 10-15 minute period after that's already happened where it's like you're not as invested as you were before the resolution occurred. So old movies, though, really get to the point and then just like when they're done they're done. So that's how this movie ends, but it works well for this movie and for this story because it kind of leaves some things up in the air in terms of what might happen after the movie's concluded, but it also gives you a satisfying ending as well. Spoiler alert, because the two main characters get out safely, but after you don't know what's going to happen after that. Is Claude Rains going to die? Is he going to go to jail? Are there going to be more consequences? Did Ingrid Bergman get treatment in the hospital? You never find out any of those things, but I think the abrupt ending, leaving you with some questions, is good for this.
Yes, I really liked the ending, which I was telling Jared earlier. I don't always like old movies the way they end. I mean, part of it is there's a comfort there. You just know someone's gonna kiss and they're gonna be like the end. There's not like a long drawn out thing, which part of that I really enjoy about old movies, but sometimes I feel like it leaves you dissatisfied. But this movie, it wasn't really a cliffhanger. You just know like someone's gonna get punished, like someone's about to die, and the movie just ends. And I was like, oh, that's even creepier. Like we don't, and that was another thing that Hitchcock did so masterfully is people would die, they would get hurt. It was kind of like Murder She Wrote, quite honestly. But you didn't need the gore. Like we
Yeah.
don't need to see someone's brains splattered about the ceiling. Like if you hear a gunshot, you're like, oh no, someone died. Or you can see like a noose or something and somebody was hung. Or that he would do like chocolate syrup or something and it was supposed to be blood because it's black and white. But I really liked the way this movie ended. I couldn't get over it.
Do you have any more likes before we move into dislikes?
No, I did want to tell people I'm so bad at navigating Letterboxd, so I can't really tell you like I'll find
She's
it.
trying.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed by how bad I am at Letterboxd. I don't utilize it the way some people do. So,
Let me
not
see if
used to it.
I can go to
I know
your
that
profile.
okay, I know the person. Oh, it says the person, their handle, I guess, is Criterion.
Okay.
No, Criterion. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, but not like the
yeah,
Criterion collection. Not they did not comment specifically, but just somebody name
yeah.
with that
Now
username.
he said, he or she, this movie is a testament to the power of Claude Rains. MF, I think he means mother effer, plays a Nazi and yet still delivers a remarkably sympathetic performance. Uneasy for sure, because I had said that everything was like uneasy in the film. So thank you for commenting on Letterboxd. Thanks for reading my review, and I think that's hilarious. And I do think he meant MFer, and that's also
Yeah, which
hilarious
is
as
funny.
well.
So good point though, for sure.
Yeah.
So on to dislikes is this is a good movie overall. It's very enjoyable, but I think when you talk about the classics of Hitchcock, it's not going to be mentioned in those for a reason. I don't think it's as iconic. It doesn't have as big set pieces as some of those other movies do, like North by Northwest with the plane and Psycho with the shower scene and things like just
Oh
really
yeah.
like iconic moments of cinema. This doesn't really have any of that in it. It's more of a smaller movie. So I think that might be a dislike is that while this is good, it's probably not the best in Hitchcock's filmography. And there's probably 5, 6, 7 movies that would be ahead of this one in terms of ones that you would think of first.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad we watched it. It's not I would watch it again for sure, but it's not like a standout for me as far as Hitchcock because there are many Hitchcock movies that I am crazy about on a level more than this. I think the only other thing I would say cuz I really had trouble figuring out what I didn't like. I do struggle with old movies, in particular how ridiculous some of the situations are, and I've basically mentioned some of the stuff that bothered me in this film. One was that Alex and Alicia get married immediately upon meeting, so that's Claude Rains' character and Ingrid Bergman. Now I get that she's doing it as a means to an end, but just how quickly people did things, no wonder they got married 6 times, like with not giving it a second thought or planning ahead. Like of course people would get married that much, but I thought that was a bit ridiculous. Another thing was, so again, I mean this is a spoiler, but the movie's from 1946. They're poisoning Ingrid Bergman's character and she doesn't catch on, which I don't know that I have not personally been poisoned over an extensive amount of time or ever, but I don't
Probably
know that
good.
you would I don't know that I don't know that you would like not suspect anything. Does that make sense? Like it's weird to me that she just thought, "Oh, I just don't feel well." And I was
It's
like,
bad
I was
flu. Yeah.
girl, they're poisoning you. and then Cary Grant eventually catches on, which is clever. And that was part of the suspense. I get why they have to set it up that way, but I have a hard time thinking people wouldn't notice they're slowly being poisoned. Like if you're living in a house and there's only 2 other people in it, and every day you feel worse and worse, and it's always after you eat, and you always feel these certain symptoms, I would think you could put it together. So some of those things, I'm just like, it's a little bit of an eye roll for me, or like the drunk driving, things like that. Again, it's a sign of the times. It's the kind of like style of the movie, so it's forgivable, but those things do bother me.
Well, and like that would be that dislike for me as well. Like, there's a period at the end of the movie where Cary Grant is waiting for Ingrid Bergman, and it's been like who knows how many days, and she hasn't shown up to their meeting location. And I know things moved slower in the 40s, but I think after 5 days or whatever, I would have
Yeah, a
been,
bit much.
going to look for. I probably would have been going to look for her after like day 2, not like a whole week passes or whatever.
Yeah.
So only other dislike I have, and it's pretty minor, is that some of the stuff in this movie I think is a little hard to follow at times just because it is thrown at you so quick. I mean, there were a
Yeah.
few times that I had to pause for a second and either go. I went to the Wikipedia summary of the plot is really pretty good. So I would just pause and be like, wait, what? Why do we care about that again? And then I would go and read through to where we're up to in the movie and figure out that missing piece of information that I just had missed, either because they said it quickly or it was a single line of dialogue or whatever. So, and that's not really an issue throughout the entire movie. I still think the plot is pretty easy to follow overall, but there were a few minor things that I was like, wait, like even you talked about like her dad dying, how
Yeah.
he died, they mentioned that very quickly. There's some other things like that just happen really quick that I think is maybe a little bit of a dislike in this movie.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay, time for our scores, and I think you go first this time.
I do. I'm going to go ahead and give this an 86.
Very nice.
I do think Hitchcock rarely made a mistake. The acting is superb. I do think because of the things we mentioned, and it is hard to look at an older film and not notice some of the lack of special effects, things we're able to do now, or how clear the film is and all that stuff. It's hard to live in this day and age and not kind of look at these old movies and see what they're kind of lacking technically. But the performances are fantastic. The story is creepy. It is wonderfully done. I mean, hardly any notes. 86.
I'm going to go just a little bit lower than you, but real close. I had it at an 85, so I'm just going to give it a straight
excellent.
85. Yeah. So enjoyed it. Again, probably not the best Hitchcock, but for the time period, for what it's doing, the story, all of that stuff, very solid. Would definitely watch this again for sure. So
me too.
That's our thoughts on Notorious. You can follow the Silver Screen Podcast on social media at Podcast Silver on Twitter and Instagram, or search the Silver Screen Podcast on Facebook. Find us there. You can follow us both on Letterboxd as well. Those links are in the show description wherever you listen to the podcast. And be sure to rate and review and subscribe as well. That always helps us out too. If you like the show, just hit that little follow button or subscribe button depending on where you listen, and that's great. And you can get the downloads automatically when we post a new episode. And then we are on the 10-year anniversary of a pretty big movie, one of Katie's. I would say this is probably one of your favorite movies.
It is.
Right?
It was when we did top 10. I think it was a runner-up.
Okay.
I can't remember.
I think it might have been just outside your top 10, but that's
Yeah.
About Time from 2013. So it's the 10-year anniversary of About Time, which honestly feels like it came out longer ago than that, but I guess that's a good thing. So, yeah, I don't know.
I can't believe it's been 10 years because I was thinking Donald Gleason, think of how much he's done since then. That was the first thing I saw him in.
And Margot Robbie too. Yeah.
Rachel McAdams has 2 kids now. I can't believe all the things that have happened in that amount of time.
So, but it's a really good movie, really good sci-fi romance, which is not two genres that really mix together very well, but it does pretty well in this movie. So that'll be our next episode of the show, reviewing About Time for its 10th anniversary.
Until next time, we'd like to thank the Academy.